Bradley, and I'm going to be talking about this instrument that I have here with me, the fiddle. When people find out that I'm a fiddle player, the question I'm most often asked right away is, what is the difference between a fiddle and a violin? Well, for a while, I wasn't really sure how to answer that, until finally a past music instructor of mine told me. You see, a violin has strings, and a fiddle has strings. Well, and anybody not laughing at that might have been thinking something along the lines of, you just put a hic accent on strings, it's not that funny. Well, whether you found it funny or not, it is kind of relevant, because when you put a hic accent on violin, it's pronounced fiddle. Most people are pretty familiar with classical and other methods of playing the violin, but a lot of people aren't all that knowledgeable about the traditional way of playing the fiddle. And hearing the instrumental part on a hit country music song does not count. It's not the same thing at all. The style that I play is called traditional Texas fiddle music. And as far as what makes that style so unique, I would be happy to tell. Let's see. And first off is a brief history. After the Scots-Irish immigrants brought the fiddle tradition over to the United States, the Texas style took off when this guy, Ed Robertson, that is on the screen right there, made a recording of this tune called Sally Gibbons. And I would play it for you, but sadly I haven't learned it, and I'm nowhere near technologically savvy enough to put it on the PowerPoint, so sorry about that. But suffice to say, nobody had ever heard anything really quite like it, and a lot of important people to the style picked it up and started making it kind of a big deal. Some people like Benny Thomason. He is the legendary Texas fiddle player, is his name. Bob Wills. If somebody in that audience doesn't know about Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys, my heart's going to just snap in two right now. It'll break. If you don't know who he is, you should look him up. He's pretty awesome. And this guy is Urban Solomon, and he was part of a recording of another important Texas fiddle tune called Sally Johnson. Yes, there's a pattern emerging here. There's a lot of Sallys in fiddle playing. Sally Johnson and Sally Gooden are also really good friends with Sally Ann and Sally Growler. That's enough of the history. So then the question is, well, how did all these guys learn these songs? Most fiddle tunes aren't written down all that often. Well, fiddlers have this method called learning by ear, or listening to a recording for a long time and memorizing it. And that contrasts with a lot of classical and other styles of players sight reading from sheet music to play. So that's probably why I often get the question, how can you possibly memorize all that? Of course, I say to the classical players, how can you play off these squiggles and dots? They make no sense. I mean, I can sort of read music, not very well, sort of like that average foreign language student just has to slowly, painfully, arduously put every word into the translator just to get through a paragraph. That's my experience with that. But at least I'm in good company. The fiddle community, a lot of them either can't or don't sight read. But it doesn't really take anything away. Everybody still plays really well. And most people are really friendly. It's a great group of people to be around. The life of music in this style is jam sessions, and they look something like that. Everybody just gets in a circle of chairs and plays anything they want and just has a ball with it. And some jam sessions look a little more like that, just in the room. And that's me at a contest playing, and as you can see, I'm smiling. It's a fun experience. Well, Well, anyway, oh yes, when you compare it to, despite the really laid back and relaxed atmosphere, when you compare fiddling to a lot of other styles, you know, classical or I guess you can play jazz on the fiddle, I don't know. It's a really aggressive way to play. You just got to put a lot of fire and a lot of force behind the bowing to make it sound good, or the notes come out weak, which when you're playing a breakdown, it sounds just wrong, absolutely wrong. If I have to pick one thing that really sets this style apart, though, it would have to be this, variations. It's the really cool part of this style. It means you never hear the same song twice, and it's what makes it so fun to listen to and makes it the dominating force in fiddle contests nationwide for decades. So, to kind of explain what they are, get ready, I'm about to fiddle for a reason. So there's basically three ways to do it. You can play it straight, just the way you first heard it, with no real variations at all, and for this purpose I'm going to use a plain version of a piece of a tune called Temperance Reel. So it would be something like this. Some people like to add some fancy flourishes to spice things up a bit, so that would be something like this, or, you know, maybe a bit different. Or sometimes people will even just change the whole thing up so you can barely recognize it, something like this. So it goes like that. And despite the emphasis on the fancy flourishes, though, sometimes simpler actually works better. And like in this one tune I know called Cotton Patch Rag, the hardest part actually goes like this. But the part that everybody likes the best and finds most impressive goes like this. Which is surprisingly quite a bit simpler once you figure out how the bowing goes. Now, back to my original question. What exactly is the difference between the fiddle and the violin? So, despite my joke earlier, I usually say that they are the same instrument except for the way you play them. But are those really so different either? I mean, when you think about it, just, you know, they both bring entertainment and enjoyment to people, and they both take skills that take weeks to pick up and years or even decades to master. And they both communicate emotions of happiness, sadness, and everything in between. So sometimes it happens that things that seem entirely different, people, ways of thinking, styles of music, are really, at their cores, the same. Thank you.